Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move a call of the Senate.
Call of the Senate has been moved and properly sustained. Will the sergeants please close the doors, allow no senators to leave, and return those who are absent from the chambers. And will the clerk please call the roll?
Senators Baisley, Bridges, Buckner, Coleman, Cutter, Danielson, Exum, Fields, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hansen, Hinrichsen, Jaquez Lewis, Kirkmeyer, no, she left. I did, and I can't get her. Colker, Liston, Lundeen, Marchman, Moreno, Mullica, Pelton B, Pelton R, Priola, Rich, Roberts, Rodriguez, Simpson, Smallwood, Sullivan, Van Winkle, Will, Winter, Zenzinger, Baisley, Bridges, Buckner, Danielson, Exum, Gardner, Gonzalez, Jaquez Lewis, Kirkmeyer, Liston, Lundeen, Marchman, Van Winkle, Winter, Zenzinger, Bridges, Buckner, Gardner, Jaquez Lewis, Kirkmeyer, Liston, Lundeen, Marchman, Winter, Bridges, Gardner, Kirkmeyer, Liston, Lundeen, Winter, Bridges, Gardner, Kirkmeyer. Lundin. Winter. Bridges. Gardner. Kirkmeyer. Lundin. Bridges. Gardner. Kirkmeyer. Lundin. 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 Bridges. Gardner. Gardner. Kirkmeyer. Bridges.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the call be raised.
The motion is to raise the call. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the call is raised. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having voted on the prevailing side, I move for the reconsideration of House Bill 1236.
The motion is for the reconsideration of House Bill 1236. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion is adopted and reconsideration is granted. Third reading of bills. Will the clerk please read the title of House Bill 1236?
House Bill 1236 by Representatives Young and Amabile, Senators Colker and Simpson concerning implementation updates to the Behavioral Health Administration and in connection therewith making and reducing an appropriation.
1236.
Senator Colker.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill, House Bill 1236 on third reading and request permission for a third reading amendment.
Will you please explain the need for a third reading amendment, Senator Colker?
Yes. So the reading for the third reading amendment is because it was discovered in the proofreading that a couple of conflicts between 1236 and Senate Bill 229. There's basically two sections referring to the same section but weren't written in coordination with each other, and so the third reading amendment coordinates it.
Very clear. Question before the body is Senator Colker's request for permission to offer a third reading amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it and permission is granted. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L34?
Amendment L034 by Senator
Senator
Colker.
Colker,
I move House Bill 1236 Amendment L034.
to the amendment.
Again, just as I stated before, this is a correction, a technical correction based on the proofreading that was done. I urge an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is for the adoption of Amendment L34 to House Bill 1236. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, L34 is adopted. To the bill, Senator Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for third reading and final passage, House Bill 1236.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of House Bill 1236. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Baisley, Minority Leader Lundin, Will, Gardner, Kirkmeyer, Smallwood, Liston, With a vote of 27 ayes, 8 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1236 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Pelton B., Marchman, Priola, Hawkes Lewis. Will the clerk please add Senator Exum as a co-sponsor on 1236? Committee reports.
May 2nd, 2023, the Committee on Judiciary, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following House Bill 1280 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, with the recommendation it be placed on the consent calendar. House Bill 1268 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, with the recommendation it be placed on the consent calendar. House Bill 1292 be amended as follows, and as so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, and with the recommendation it be placed on the consent calendar. House Bill 1286 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1222 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, with the recommendation it be placed on the consent calendar. House Bill 1214 be amended as follows, and as so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1293 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. May 2nd, 2023, the Committee on Appropriations, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following Senate Bill 303 be amended as follows, and as so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
Message from the House.
May 2nd, 2023, Mr. President, the House has adopted and returns herewith Senate Joint Resolution 8. The House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the Reviser of Statutes. House Bill 1253, amended as printed in House Journal May 1st, 2023. The House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the Reviser of Statutes. House Bill 1198, amended as printed in House Journal May 1st, 2023, and amended on third reading and printed in House Journal May 2nd, 2023. The House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the Reviser of Statutes. Senate Bill 200, amended as printed in House Journal May 1st, 2023. The House has passed on third reading and returns herewith Senate Bills 274, 198, 283, 31, 191, 253, and 254. The House has voted to grant the House conferees on the first conference committee on Senate Bill 60 to consider matters not at issue between the two houses. The House has voted not to concur in the Senate amendments to House Bill 1019 and request that a conference committee be appointed. The Speaker has appointed Representatives Wiseman, Chair, Bacon, and Lynch as House conferees on the first conference committee on House Bill 1019. The House has granted authorization to go beyond the scope of the differences. The bill is transmitted herewith. The House has voted not to concur in the Senate amendments to House Concurrent Resolution 1001 and request that a conference committee be appointed. The Speaker has appointed Representatives Wiseman, Chair, Bacon, and Lynch as House conferees on the first conference committee on House Concurrent Resolution 1001. The House has granted authorization to go beyond the scope of the differences. The bill is transmitted herewith. The House has voted to concur in the Senate amendments to House Bill 1003, 1074, 1182, 1227, 1229, 1231, 1243, and 1272, and has repassed the bills as so amended.
Message from the Reviser.
May 2nd, 2023, we herewith transmit without comment as amended House Bill 1198 and 1253, without comment as amended Senate Bill 200.
Second reading of the bills, consent calendar. Mr. Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate take up Special order, second reading of bills consent calendar, House Bill 1013, House Bill 1107, 1247, 1267, 1299, 1301, 1280, 1268, 1222, and 1292 on special orders consent calendar at the hour of 1600.
The motion is that the Senate take up House Bills 1013, 1107, 1247, 1267, 1299, 1301, 1280, 1268, 1222, 1292 at the hour of 1600. Or is it just 1600? Just 1600. 1601 on special orders consent calendar. This requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The Senate will take up those bills on special order consent at the hour of 1601. Special order is second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I missed the days in which everything started at 0900, but since it's 1600 in 1 minute, I move that the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself in Committee of the Whole for consideration of special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Gonzalez will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the court rules relaxed for everybody. Will the clerk, Ms. Cole, will you please read the title to all of the bills on the special order second reading of bills consent calendar?
House Bill 1013, Representative Amabile, Senator Fields, and Rodriguez, concerning measures to regulate the use of restrictive practices on individuals in correctional facilities. House Bill 1107, Representatives Duran and Pugliese, Senators Gardner and Winter F, concerning funding for crime victim services. House Bill 1247, Representatives Lukens and Winter T, Senators Roberts and Pelton R, concerning a requirement that the Colorado Energy Office conduct studies to assess advanced energy solutions in rural Colorado, and in connection therewith making an appropriation. House Bill 1267, Representatives McGlusky and Soper, Senator Roberts, concerning increased penalties for speeding violations on highways with steep downhill grades, and in connection with making an appropriation. House Bill 1299, Representatives Byrd and Bockenfield, Senators Bridges and Kirkmeyer, concerning the Justice Reinvestment Crime Prevention Initiative, and in connection therewith making an appropriation. House Bill 1301, Representatives Snoper and Snyder, Senators Gardner and Rodriguez, concerning the non-substantive revision of statutes in the Colorado Revised Statutes as amended, and in connection therewith amending or repealing obsolete, imperfect, and inoperative law to preserve the legislative intent, effect, and meaning of the law. House Bill 1280, Representatives Joseph and Soper, Senators Roberts and Gardner, concerning the codification of the Colorado Access to Justice Commission. House Bill 1268, Representatives Lukens and Evans, Senators Roberts and Pelton B, concerning changes to the process for a person serving a criminal sentence in Colorado for conviction in another state to participate in a private treatment program. House Bill 1222, Representatives Duran and Wiseman, Senators Roberts and Winter F, concerning the jurisdiction of municipal courts to hear domestic violence offenses. House Bill 1292, Representatives Weissman and Soper, Senators Gonzalez and Gardner, concerning the adoption of the 2023 recommendations of the Colorado Commission on Criminal and Juvenile Justice regarding enhanced sentencing.
Assistant Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the adoption for all the bills on the consent calendar and the associated committee reports, which includes House Bill 1013 and the Appropriations Report, House Bill 1107, House Bill 1247, House Bill 1267, House Bill 1299, House Bill 1301, and the Judiciary Report, 1280, 1268, 1222, and 1292, and the Judiciary Report.
Is there any discussion on the committee reports? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of all the committee reports on the special order second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it by a hair, and the committee reports are adopted. Is there any discussion on any of the bills on the consent calendar? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of all of the bills in the special order second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it strongly this time, and the bills are adopted. Assistant Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Motion is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we will rise and report. I'm just going to leave everything.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met, was wildly efficient, and has a number of bills on which we will report. Ms. Cole, will you please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1013 is amended, House Bill 1107, House Bill 1247, House Bill 1267, House Bill 1299, House Bill 1301 as amended, House Bill 1280, House Bill 1268, House Bill 1222, House Bill 1292 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered, revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Thank you, Cindy. House Bills 1013 is amended, 1107, 1247, 1267, 1299, 1301 as amended, 1280, 1268, 1222, 1292 as amended, passed on second reading in order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senator 05 has been requested and granted.
do. Thank you, sorry.
Senate will come to order. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate take up the following bills on special orders, second reading at the hour of 4:18 p.m. Senate Bills 299, 296, 303, and House Bills 1158, 1088, 1133, 1138, 1252, 1270, 1210, 1192, 1214, 1286, 1249, 1120, and 1190. Colleagues, calendars have been distributed to your desks. 4:18.
The motion is that the Senate take up the bills mentioned by the Majority Leader and that have been distributed on a calendar on special orders consent at the hour of 4:18. This does require a 2/3 vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will take up those previously mentioned bills on special orders at the hour of 4:18 p.m. Special orders, second reading of bills. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of special orders, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the special orders, second reading of bills, and Senator Gonzalez will take the chair.
All right, y'all. The committee will come to order, and the coat rule is relaxed. Ms. Cole, will you please read the bill? The Title II, Senate Bill 299.
Senate Bill 299, Senator Cutter, concerning the requirement to acquire epinephrine autoinjectors for placement at institutions of higher education.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 23299 on second reading and along with the Education Committee report.
To the Education Committee report.
In the Education Committee, we just refined the language a little bit to conform with laws, existing laws around immunity. This deals with putting EpiPens in schools. So to conform with existing laws and a few little language tweaks in response to higher education stakeholding.
Is there any further discussion on the Education Committee report? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the Ed report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that report is adopted. Ms. Cole, we have an amendment at the desk. Will you please read L004 to 299?
Amendment L004 by Senator Cutter, amend the Education Committee report dated May 1st, 2023, page 1, line 12, strike reasonably and substitute reasonably and.
Senator Cutter.
Yeah, I'd like to move L004. And what this amendment does is, it amends the Education Committee report because there was a typo. We left out the word and.
Is there any further discussion on this L004? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of L004 to 299. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L004 is adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, please read L003 to 299.
Amendment L003.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move L003. This amendment basically is, again, in response to higher education stakeholders. It just makes it, gives them a little more flexibility in developing their own policy on where they're going to put these EpiPens and how many. It makes all of them happy, and I ask for your support.
Making people happy, it's what we do. Is there further discussion on L003? Leader Lundin.
You're fine. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and to the bill sponsor, thank you for this. We heard this bill in committee, and colleagues, it's one of those moments that just the story behind this bill would break your heart.
Bless you.
And it's an effort to resolve the life-threatening risks that allergic reactions can be, and the life-saving mechanism that an EpiPen, an epinephrine auto-injector, may be. Had some really significant challenges with some of the drafting language, and quite frankly, felt that it was creating a box that would make it impossible, in my perspective, or very difficult, my perspective, for the universities, the colleges, the higher education institutions to actually comply with the intention. I think this amendment L003, goes a long way to creating the freedoms that higher ed needs to achieve their goal. And when the amendment gets moved, we can actually talk to it more fully, I suspect.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I move amendment L003.
There we go. As opposed to I'd like to move.
Okay.
To the amendment.
To the bill.
To the amendment.
Okay, well, the amendment, as I said, just creates a little more flexibility for institutions of higher ed to figure out their own policy and how they'd like it to work on their campus. So I ask for your support again.
Further discussion on L003.
Fair enough, and this amendment doesn't necessarily go to the legal challenge or the drafting challenge that are perceived in the bill, but it goes to the practical challenge. So in the particular fact pattern, the circumstance that we saw that was so heartbreaking wouldn't have necessarily been addressed by the bill as drafted, but I believe is addressed more fully by giving the institutions of higher education greater flexibility. As drafted, the bill required that auto-injectors be placed in student housing facilities and cafeterias as controlled by the university. The fact pattern in this particular instance was it was on private property at a sorority house or outside of a sorority house where the incident happened. And so this amendment would offer the institutions the ability to determine. The amendment says each institution of higher education shall adopt a policy concerning the placement of epinephrine auto-injectors that focuses on areas where students gather in the largest volumes, including dormitories and dining halls. But it would also allow for other things that might actually reach out further into the higher education community and provide the protections necessary to, in the future, save the life of an individual as precious as the young lady who lost her life and who this act would be named after. So I am grateful for the bill sponsors' amendment, and I believe it makes the bill dramatically better.
Is there further discussion on L003? Seeing none, is there, all those in favor of L003 to Senate Bill 299, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. L003 is adopted. To the bill, Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just briefly, I will tell you the story that the good senator from Monument alluded to. Many of you know Commissioner Andy Kerr, former Senator Andy Kerr. His daughter witnessed her best friend die because her EpiPen wasn't handy. It was a terrible, tragic set of circumstances. She drank something that unexpectedly had, I think, protein powder in it, and she had a milk allergy. And it was quick. Her friends ran quickly as they could to get an EpiPen and were not able to retrieve it in time. And, you know, they're kind of bulky. She didn't carry it with her. She just was out and about on campus. A really, really horrible story, and that was his daughter's lifelong best friend, and she had to watch this happen. And her mother, and as well as Commissioner Kerr and his daughter Kennedy, gave very moving testimony about the impact on their family. And this bill, which we are calling Sydney, I think we're naming after her. I want to make sure I get the name right, but at any rate, Sydney's Law. We're going to when we pass this bill, it'll be a great tribute to her and hopefully save a lot of lives with a pretty easy fix. So basically what this bill is requiring is that colleges and universities just create their own policy around where they want to put these EpiPens in reasonable amounts around campus so they're reasonably accessible for kids. And as you heard, we worked together with stakeholders to make sure that it was easy enough for them to adopt and not too onerous. But I think it's worth worth a little bit of effort to save lives with a really, really simple thing. 1 in 10 people in Colorado have a life-threatening food allergy. Many, many young people die every year because they do not have access to this epinephrine quickly and easily. So this bill can help fix that, especially on college campuses, and I ask for your support.
Further discussion on 299. Senator Rich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry. And I want to thank the sponsor for the latest 2 amendments. That really does help. But I do want to talk about one thing that I didn't talk about when we were in committee, and it is about the number of EpiPens that might have to, that could potentially increase the cost in Colorado. While this in theory preemptively avoided is avoided with House Bill 23-1002, which caps the cost of an EpiPen for an individual at $60, Colorado runs the risk of further driving up the cost of health premiums and overall health care costs to cover the increased manufacturing of EpiPens. We could be looking at creating inflation in the name of preventing this issue for people who are already carrying or have access to EpiPens. So that was just one of my concerns, is that we've gotten the cost down to $60, and now if the demand is going to increase, that could affect insurance premiums. Just something to think about. I think this is an important bill, but I'm worried about what that does to everyone's insurance premiums.
Further discussion on 299. Senator Baisley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I was in the Education Committee as well when we heard this bill, and I also want to thank the good senator from Jefferson County, bordering my district to the north, for bringing the bill, but really for refining it as she just did moments ago with the amendment. That is an excellent amendment, and it gives me it resolves some concern that I was having. So, yeah, it was very impactful to have the family, have the girl who was lost, have Sydney's mother right there with us so we could talk to. Turns out she's a constituent of mine, so I got to have a good conversation with her afterward. This idea concerns me in a couple of ways. One, that we mandate to whatever organization, in this case, higher ed, living quarters, where that there ought to be the EpiPens stored there. If we're not funding it as a state, then I question whether we should be requiring that. I like the idea of a conversation around, hey, if we require that some emergency device be stored somewhere and at the ready, that we also supply the funding so that we're not making an unfunded mandate. But I want to just really introduce the concept, because this comes up. It came up a few years, maybe 3 years ago, when with defibrillators to be stored in businesses and so on around the place. And then I have in my own family, my son who's diabetic. I've had to emergency inject him once when his blood sugar got so low, and I had to use his emergency kit to bring him back to consciousness, because it's just like a emergency jolt of sugar so that he could function again. So I can just imagine all the several things that would be smart to have in obvious locations. So locations certainly in dormitories, in businesses, and it seems like maybe we ought to have that conversation about socializing emergency centers where you go there, break glass, whatever you have to do to resolve that problem for that person, and I imagine we could save a lot of lives just if that were a normal thing for Colorado. So I think that's a worthy conversation. It's a worthy conversation, certainly, to have these EpiPens in dormitories, in living quarters, or where the students congregate, which is what the bill is talking about now. And it's not an ominous bill. It's not being pushed too hard, I don't think. It seems like the language is pretty properly balanced. So I appreciate again the good senator from Jefferson County bringing this up. This is a worthy conversation, and one that this body ought to talk about, and today and years to come. That let's be 21st century thinkers and do what's smart for our citizens. So I thank the sponsor, and I would appreciate an aye vote on this bill.
Senator Buckner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The testimony yesterday around Senate Bill 299 was so compelling, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. And I want to remind everyone that our former state senator, Andy Kerr, testified, and his daughter, Kennedy, as we heard, Kennedy Kerr, beautiful young lady, college student, was with her best friend, Sydney Megan, when Sydney passed away due to an allergic reaction. One of the statistics I heard yesterday that I will not forget is the fact that there is a 377% increase to food allergies. That's really significant. A 377% increase in food allergies. Also, among college students, there is a 24% increase amongst those students. I know all about food allergies because I have many. I have to carry an EpiPen, and I know how urgent it is to have access to an EpiPen when you have an allergic reaction. Yes, this may increase the amount of money we need to spend as a state, but it's worth a life. It's worth all the lives we can save. So I'm really in favor of this bill. I'm hoping that we will all be in favor of this bill, as it definitely is going to save lives. And we will never forget the story that Sydney Megan's mother told us. Her mother actually showed us a video of her life. Someone made a video of her when she was, for her 18th birthday. So we got to see how full of life she was before she passed away at the young age of 18 years old. So every life we can save is important. I am in full favor of Senate Bill 299 and want to thank the Kerr family for bringing this bill to our committee yesterday. And thank Senator Cutter for being the sponsor of this bill.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thanks to all my colleagues for the wonderful support. We did come out of committee unanimously yesterday, so this bill is really important. Just, I wanted to clarify a few things. House Bill or maybe Senate Bill, but 1002 caps the cost of insulin, so, or of EpiPens, excuse me, EpiPens. It was actually in the dorm, not in a sorority, where Sydney passed. And this bill does make it possible to use gifts and grants to buy these pens, but they can also use any funds that they deem appropriate. So it's very, very flexible for each institution. And I hope you will support us today.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of 299. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and 299 is adopted. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Senate Bill 296 and Senate Bill 303 lay over to the end of the calendar.
The motion is to lay over 296 and 303. All those in favor say aye. Aye. The opposed, no. The ayes have it, and those bills will lay over. Ms. Cole, will you please read the title to House Bill 1158?
House Bill 1158, Representatives Wilford and Taggart, Senator Mullica, concerning the creation of the Colorado Commodity Supplemental Food Grant Program and in connection therewith, making an appropriation.
Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1158 and the Health and Human Services Committee report.
To the Health and Human Services Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In HHS, we ran an amendment that created the food bank grant program. It creates a line item in the budget. There's no budgetary impact, just creates the program and allows for future advocacy. I would ask for a yes vote.
Is there further discussion on the HHS report? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the Health and Human Services Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That report is adopted. To the bill. To the bill, Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, really proud to bring before you House Bill 1158. What this bill does is provides $1 million for food banks to apply for, or the Colorado Department of Human Services. And what that money will actually go to is to create food boxes for some of the most vulnerable members in our community to provide supplemental food to the elderly. And so it's a bill that is going to impact all of our communities and, like I said, help some of the most vulnerable and making sure that we're supplementing some of the food that they're getting. I know the good senator from Parker has an amendment to make sure that we're putting the parameters around it, and I'll let him talk about that, but I ask for a yes on the bill.
Further discussion on 1158. There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, well, let me recognize first Senator Smallwood. And then, Ms. Cole, will you please read L005 to 1158?
Amendment L005 by
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment 5.
To the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair and colleagues. If you take a look at either the introduced or the re-engrossed bill for House Bill 1158, looks like a good program, making sure that this grant that is designed to support what they call qualified, let me get a copy of my own amendment, is supposed to support qualifying low-income older Colorado adults as far as being eligible for this program. You'll notice in the ledge deck on page 2, lines 4 through 8, it just kind of describes the program and how the commodity supplemental food program is supposed to work. So I think it's pretty clear in the ledge deck, but not really in the bill itself, what will become law. What is a qualifying low-income older Colorado adult? So all this amendment does, I worked with the bill sponsor in committee, and those of you who are in committee know that this was going to be ideally looked at as a friendly amendment, simply defining that as an adult who is 60 years of age or older and whose household income is not more than 130% of the federal poverty level. And anybody who hasn't looked at the federal poverty level chart lately, I would really encourage you to do so that you know what 130% of the federal poverty level is, especially in a state like Colorado. So would ask for your aye vote on Amendment 5.
Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just want to take an opportunity to thank the good senator from Parker for this. We did have the discussion in committee, members, and it is in the ledge deck. This language does align with the CSFP requirements, and so this is a friendly amendment, and I would ask for a yes vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1158. All those in favor? I'm sorry. The motion before the body is the adoption of L005. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. L005 is adopted. Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1158. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and in honor of Senator Smallwood, that bill is adopted. So calm. Let's see, Ms. Cole, will you please read the title to House Bill 1088?
House Bill 1088 by Representative Martinez and Senator Henriksen concerning a program to provide mental health services for veterans who have exhausted federal Veterans Administration mental health benefits and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Let's see, Senator Henriksen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1088 and the corresponding State Veterans and Military Affairs and Appropriations Committee reports.
Awesome. To the SBMA report.
In SVMA, we narrowed the bill significantly to reflect the area that is not getting the federal support that's needed in caring for veterans with these mental health benefit needs. And in doing so, we're able to more thoroughly provide for those needs.
Excellent. Is there further discussion on the SVMA report? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the SVMA committee report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that report is adopted. To the approps report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So because of that reduction of scope, even while we're expanding care to provide the full spectrum of need that there is, we were able to reduce the fiscal note by more than 50%.
Sweet. Is there any further discussion on the approps report? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the approps report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that report is adopted. To the bill. There is almost an amendment. There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L009 to 1088?
Amendment L00.
Senator Henriksen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So based on the changes in the SVMA committee and the Appropriations Committee, this amendment now just adds some clarifying language to that, and it narrows the title to more specifically address what we're dealing with in the specific mental health program for veterans, specifically those in community living centers. And I move L009.
There you go. There you go. That's a proper motion, Senator Henriksen. Thank you. Is there any further discussion on L009? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of L009. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. That amendment is adopted. Is there any further discussion on 1088? Senator Peltonby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to thank the sponsor for bringing this bill. This is going to help a lot of people, and I appreciate their diligent works on making sure to also cut the appropriations committee and still be able to give care to the people that are going to need it most. Truthfully, we just don't do enough for our veterans, and I really appreciate this bill, and thank you. I want to thank the sponsor, so thank you.
Excellent. Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1088. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and 1088 is adopted.
Will the clerk please read the title to HB 1133?
House Bill 1133, Representatives Lindsay and Amabile, Senators Gonzalez and Rodriguez, concerning the cost of communication services for persons in custody and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We move House Bill 1133.
To the bill.
This bill would actually move forward and make prison and jail phone calls free, because we know that 2 years ago we made a change to adopt a study and to initially limit the cost of prison phone calls, the cost of jail phone calls, because we heard from community members that the costs were exorbitant, and we also learned that by making these calls so expensive and these communications so expensive that that incarcerated individuals were losing their family and community connections, therefore increasing the risk of recidivism. And so House Bill 1133 would shift that policy and make jail and prison communications free in order to help people who are currently navigating the criminal justice system to maintain those communications and thereby reduce recidivism. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, colleagues, for listening to this bill and reading it. I think it's important to realize this is a step-down process. It's not happening immediately. It happens up through 2025. But, you know, as we all talk about the costs that we have to spend on recidivism and people in jail and people not wanting to go back, and when they get out, you know, they don't have contact with their family, they've lost touch with loved ones. You know, having the ability to keep in communication either with your children or your loved ones to know that they're there for you when you do get out is a big step to helping people transition and not go back, because a lot of people don't lose that communication and come back. So I think this is a good step in a long-term of saving process to help people keep in touch with their family support group, which are important parts of coming out in recidivism. Whenever you come out, do you have your support system? Do you have your treatment? Do you have your therapy? Having a support system is important, and maintaining that through your time will, in the end run, I think, reduce recidivism. So I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1133. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Bill 1133 is adopted.
Ms. Cole, will you please read the title to 1138?
House Bill 1138, Representatives Amabile and Soper, Senator Rodriguez, concerning procedures related to adult competency proceeding.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1138.
To the bill.
Colleagues, this bill creates a new statutory section, a new path to a short-term civil certification that applies only to defendants who have criminal charges and who have been found incompetent. When a mental health professional finds that an incompetent criminal defendant is in danger to themselves or all others, or gravely disabled under the law, it allows civil certification process to occur in appropriate situations. This bill clarifies that these incompetent defendants do not have to go through a 72-hour hold prior to the civil short-term certification process beginning. It also clarifies that in assessing whether a person is dangerous or gravely disabled, that an evaluator should not just rely on the fact that the person is in jail and say the person is not dangerous or disabled only because the person is in jail. This will clarify confusion around the better standard and make it work. Colleagues, we've been working on competency legislation over the years. Every year we get a little step closer to getting it right. This bill has, you know, over the years we've run many competency bills, but this will help clarify and speed up the process. I am happy to announce that most of the law enforcement organizations are in support or have been working on this bill. The DA's Council, the Defense Bar, judges, judicial are all came out in support and have worked collaboratively as well as the mental health institutions. So it's a good bill and a step we've been taking for years. And I do have a minor amendment to offer to do a technical correction, which
There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L005 to House Bill 1138?
Amendment L005 by
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L005.
To the amendment.
The amendment fixes a drafting mistake to accomplish the intent of the stakeholders and changes an and to an or. The amendment makes sure that the misdemeanors, misdemeanor traffic, petty offenses, and traffic offenses with incompetent offenses are treated the same way as they are under existing law, so that the court can dismiss the case and, when appropriate, route the defendant to the civil certification. It also allows for incompetent felony defendants to also be routed there, but only with the DA's agreement. It adds any power to do anything over the DA's objection that does not exist. All the stakeholders have supported this amendment, so I ask for an aye vote.
That is a lengthy explanation of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-word amendment.
I'm sure there's other bills people would like to talk a long time about.
Thank you, Senator Rodriguez. Is there any further discussion on L005 to 1138? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of L005. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. L005 is adopted. Is there any further discussion on 1138? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1138. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. 1138 is adopted. Ms. Cole, will you please read the title to House Bill 1252?
House Bill 1252, Representatives Leiter and Kipp, Senator Exum, concerning the implementation of measures to advance thermal energy service.
Senator Exum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1252.
To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't go over what I went over in committee. I'll just give you the highlights of this bill, what it does. It adds retrofitting a building with thermal energy, heating and cooling, and generating thermal energy from direct air capture to the Colorado Energy Office Geothermal Electric Grant Program. It also ensures that thermal energy public projects use high labor standards, creating jobs for more Coloradans. It adds thermal energy as an eligible clean heat resource for heating to meet heat targets. It authorizes regulated gas utilities to apply for review and approval of the use of thermal energy networks in the gas utility service area. It requires gas utilities to be regulated by the Commission and serves more than 500,000 customers to propose a pilot thermal energy network project to the PUC for approval. And lastly, it defines thermal energy networks, and thermal energy systems, and asks for an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Exum. Further discussion. Senator Pelton B.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I heard this in committee. I think I was the only no vote, if I remember. Yes, I was. And my only problem is just like what we talked on a previous bill about PLAs, I wanted to make sure that with the labor standards that we're not just making sure that we're only being productive for one part of the workforce. And the labor standards kind of restricts who can bid for some of these jobs, especially on these bigger jobs. So in section 3, I think it's 40-3-2-105.7, it talks about the labor standards for the state thermal energy network and thermal energy system projects. And my problem with this bill was, again, I want to make sure that everybody is going to be able to bid for these jobs, so we can make sure that some of these jobs, or some of these for the state, that if we're using taxpayer money, that those jobs, the taxpayers won't get shorted in the long run. So I want to make sure that we can build this stuff out like it needs to be built out, but anybody is able to go after those jobs, and just not one section of the workforce with a small amount of workforce. So I ask for a no vote on House Bill 23-1252. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Exum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you notice in section 3 on the re-engross bill, this work is going to be performed by licensed electricians, licensed plumbers, to be installed with compliance with the rules of the state, of the electrical board of the state, of the plumbing board, and in accordance with the electrical and plumbing codes adopted pursuant. For thermal energy networks and thermal energy systems that utility owns, utilities shall use utility employees or qualified contractors to perform any construction trade work. We want to make sure we use qualified people, licensed folks to do this work. We ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1252. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. 1252 is adopted. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1270 lay over to the end of the calendar.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1270 to the end of the calendar. All those in favor say aye. Those in opposition say no. The ayes have it, and 1270 is laid over to the bottom of the calendar. Ms. Cole, will you please read the title to House Bill 1210? Wait, Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1210 lay over to the end of the calendar.
Motion is to lay over 1210 to the bottom of the calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and 1210 will lay over to the bottom of the calendar.
Ms. Cole, will you please read the title to House Bill 1192?
House Bill 1192, Representative Wiseman, Senators Gonzalez and Rodriguez, concerning the creation of the additional protections in the Consumer Code.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1192 and the Judiciary Report.
Any discussion on the Judiciary Committee report? Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. During the Judiciary Committee, an amendment was put on to strip the ability for certain consumers to vindicate their rights under the Consumer Protection Act. It limited the ability it left in place a barrier to continue to exist that moves, that leaves in statute currently barriers that are largely insurmountable. Over the committee hearing, we actually heard testimony from practicing attorneys within the Consumer Protection Division of the Attorney General's office who said in their 20-plus year career that they had never successfully been able to vindicate an individual's rights under these provisions of law. Nevertheless, given the large and well-moneyed opposition to actually protecting consumer rights, that amendment was stripped in committee.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee report is adopted. To the bills. Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 1192 does while it removed protections for many consumers, it did produce some antitrust measures and anti-competitive measures in there for the Attorney General to enforce. Ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of House Bill 1192. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and 1192 is adopted. Ms. Cole, will you please read the title to House Bill 1214?
House Bill 1214, Representative Epps, Senators Coleman and Gonzalez, concerning establishing procedures related to applying for commutation of a criminal sentence.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We move House Bill 1214 and the associated Judiciary Committee report.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the Judiciary Committee, we added an amendment in order to respond to concerns and narrow the focus and tighten up the bill to clarify the procedures related to applying for a commutation of a sentence. I ask for an aye vote.
The motion is the adoption of that more brighter version of the Judiciary Committee report. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Judiciary Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of House Bill 1214. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and 1214 is adopted. Ms. Cole, will you please read the title to House Bill 1286?
House Bill 1286, Representative Armagost and Duran, Senators Gardner and Janal, concerning changes to monetary penalties for the offense of cruelty to animals for working animals that are used in connection with governmental entities.
Senator Janal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1286. There are no committee reports.
To the bill. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this is a bill largely brought in response to a series of incidents here in Colorado involving canines, service dogs, who have been seriously injured or even given their lives in encounters with people who are fleeing felons and other things. Then it turns out that the penalty for that is quite limited. This bill imposes substantial monetary penalties. We wanted to address it in that way, and it has gotten actually quite a bit of favorable attention around the state and in the law enforcement community. we would ask for your enthusiastic aye vote.
Senator Janelle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the last year, we've had 2 law enforcement canines that were shot in the line of duty. In February, Graffiti, which is from the Jeffco Sheriff's Office, loyally served since 2015, and he was trained in narcotics detection. He gave 110%. March of this year, Jenks, El Paso County Sheriff's Office, was shot, loyally served since 2020. Many times, canines are the first line of defense in life-threatening situations, and the loss of these highly specialized animals is treated much the same as the loss of a human officer. Losing a team member as well as a family member. The dog is there 24/7 with an officer. It's a true human-animal bond to that officer and his family. This bill can't fill that void of his loss. But another issue is the large financial loss for the local governments. Police dogs and horses can cost tens of thousands of dollars to acquire and train, and the U.S. Department of Justice puts the cost of a police dog at $57,000, although depending upon the specific use of the animal, for example, a bomb-sniffing dog, cadaver dogs, the cost can be higher. And even Adams County Sheriff Office recently testified the cost for dogs that he has worked with was over $100,000. In addition, police dogs require ongoing maintenance training to keep their sharp skills. The cost to acquire and train a police horse can be similar to that of a police dog. The horse's size allows officers to have a clear view of the crowds. The horses are also extremely useful in crowd control, able to help move people more effectively than an officer could do alone. So House Bill 23-1286 would make sure that when a working law enforcement animal is injured or killed, the cost to care or to replace the animal, including the costs associated with veterinary care, with animal and handler training, and certification is covered. I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of House Bill 12. Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to come up and say I support this bill 110%. Thank you to the sponsors.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of House Bill 1286. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 1286 is adopted. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee proceed out of order for consideration of Senate Bill 296.
The motion is for the committee to proceed out of order for consideration of Senate Bill 296. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will proceed out of order for consideration of Senate Bill 296. Ms. Cole, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 296?
Senate Bill 296, Senators Winter F. and Marchman, Representative Bacon, concerning protections for students against discriminatory practices at school.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 296 and the Associated Education Committee report.
To the committee report.
In the committee, we made several amendments at the request of stakeholders. One is definitions around school requirements. One around absences and accommodations. So we struck language around truancy. School harassment or discrimination policy and staff training we changed. A report striking the liability within the bill, and made changes for the district attorneys and clarified that federal law supersedes this law. And I encourage you guys to vote on the committee report.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of the Education Committee report. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Education Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to share a couple of findings from the Healthy Kids survey that shows why this bill is so incredibly important. The 10.3% of our students have said they've been electronically bullied. That's 29,000 students. 11.1% 31,000 of our high school students have said they've been bullied on school property. The percentage of students who have ever been physically forced to have sexual intercourse, raped, is 16,000 students. 16,000 students. The percentage of students who have made sexual comments, jokes, gestures, or looks to someone when unwanted is 19,000 students. This is important. Today in the Denver Post, it says teen leaves Castle Rock Middle School after racist slurs and threats, family and attorney say. Let me just read one piece from this article to highlight why this is so incredibly important. There had been a lot of bullying of people calling me a monkey and cotton picker, Jeremiah said in an interview. I wanted something to happen. I sent an email in anger and frustration, hoping to get a response, and I didn't. Jeremiah also told his mother, Lacey, about a Snapchat group with more than 80 Douglas County students in which students repeatedly used racist slurs, called for the genocide of black people, and threatened to shoot black people and bring back the Holocaust. When students in this group learned Jeremiah had shared the message, Lacey said the students talked about lynching him. He can never go back to these schools, she said. They're talking about lynching my son. I'm not sending him back there. He's someone who thrives on education. He didn't know who to report to. He tried to email the school, and he didn't get a response. The mom did not know who to turn to. So yes, we have Title IX policies in place, but they're ineffective, and one of the biggest things that this bill does is make sure that it's exceptionally clear where to report and who to call and what the process will be.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a Colorado middle school teacher and mom, it is my honor to bring SB 296 to you. This bill will provide clear definitions for harassment and discrimination in public K-12 schools. It requires that schools accept reports of harassment or discrimination, post the policy for reporting harassment and discrimination in age-appropriate ways in all public schools, and adopt procedures to investigate reports of harassment and discrimination. This bill will give students excused absences when they must miss school due to harassment and discrimination for out-of-school appointments. And schools will respond to harassment or discrimination through accommodations and supportive measures. These do not exist currently in K-12 schools. They do not exist in K-12 schools as they are now. Additionally, schools will provide resources for victims of gender-based violence and sexual violence. I urge your aye vote on 296.
Senator Winter and then Senator Baisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a number of amendments at the desk we would like to run, please.
There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L006?
Amendment L006
Senator
by
Winter.
Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move L006.
Is there any discussion on L006? Senator Winter.
This adds clarity to the types of support or measures that can be provided. The bill covers all forms of harassment, and so that makes sure that students are informed of community resources for victims of any type of violence. It gives more guidance to what a regular update means, to have clarity on data reporting. It's more specificity on how this aligns with federal laws, and it reiterates that absences can be excused for behavioral and mental health concerns as a result of harassment or discrimination.
Any further discussion on L006? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of L006. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L006 is adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you read Amendment L009? Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L009.
Any discussion on L009? Senator Marchman.
Thank you. This just aligns the definition of schools and districts with the other education statutes. So we changed public school to local education provider throughout.
Seeing no further discussion on L009, the motion is the adoption of L009. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L009 is adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L010? Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L010.
Any discussion on L10? Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is about supporting students and coming forward to report or participate in investigations of harassment. More clear that we mean an exemption from discipline for policy violations related to drinking and drug use. We also narrowed the clause from any policy violation that aren't the most common, and it adds in protections for students when a school doesn't have enough evidence to make a finding of sexual assault. And I encourage yes vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of L10. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The aye has it, and L10 is adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L11? Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L011.
Any discussion on L11? Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This makes changes to the training requirements. They will not be annual. They will be, training will happen for educators that are new, and then every 3 years, as well as when changing between elementary and secondary.
Seeing no further discussion on L11, the motion is the adoption of L11. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L11 is adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L13? Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L013.
Any discussion on L13? Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've had conversations around the definition of harassment for years in this chamber and as a body. And this year we did pass Senate Bill 172, which is now past third readings, is on the way to the governor's desk. And so we are mirroring the language from Senate Bill 172 because we want to make sure that our children are equally as protected as their teachers and their parents are in the workplace.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of L13. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L13 is adopted. Senator Baisley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, my greatest concern with Senate Bill 296, which we heard in the Education Committee, was about the non-reporting of sexual violence acts of sexual violence, which may have been covered in L006. I have to go incorporate that and consume it and see if it has addressed, but I will express it regardless what my concern has been. So the bill opens up in bill summary saying that the bill requires that a report received by a public school that alleges harassment or discrimination is confidential. And then it goes on to describe all the ways it could receive that information, including from Safe to Tell, and which was championed by the good senator from Highlands Ranch in previous years. But it includes the policy that must be written that must include information about resources for victims of gender-based violence and sexual violence, and then describes the coverage of such things in the body of the report of the bill, including I will call it, at least in the original section 1, paragraph B, paragraph 2B, a report of harassment or discrimination received by a public school is confidential, and the school staff shall keep information learned during an investigation of harassment or discrimination confidential to the extent practicable, except that nothing in the section, and so on. Then goes on to item 3, that says, a public school shall provide supportive measures and so on without requiring a student to share information that could trigger a mandatory report to police. Further, in Section 5B, prohibiting reliance on a criminal investigation by law enforcement in lieu of responding to a report of harassment or discrimination promptly and effectively. And so these that add up to the confidentiality for crimes that are discouraged from being reported to law enforcement. So I understand one argument against that. I'm not insensitive to that, that the victim of a sexual crime may wish to keep things confidential so that she or he, but she in most cases can be in control of how things move forward and what she might have to go through in addition to the original crime. But I'm concerned that we are setting up an environment within K-12 that protects the criminal and ultimately creates more victims. So I'm really concerned about the push for confidentiality in this reporting that is required that the schools take on. So that's my biggest concern. I will review these amendments and see if that addresses those, but I'm suspecting not. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Seeing no further discussion, Senator Lundin.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Let me start to the bill and then maybe back into some amendments that are in the process of arriving. Good senator who has 2 law degrees and is referred to as a simple country attorney is always perplexed by the magical way that amendments appear at the desk. I'm hoping some amendments will appear at the desk here on my behalf. There is no doubt that the desires that the sponsors bring on this bill are pure, and we would all be in agreement that the end result would be what we want. We want children, quite frankly, to behave respectfully and appropriately with each other, as we would hope adults would behave respectfully and appropriately with each other. And there is a huge policy conversation to get into and to get into the details of how that happens and what works well and what doesn't work well. It's all centered in this conversation around Title IX. And that's a big policy conversation I'm just going to put aside for the moment and talk about my primary concern around this bill. And my primary concern around this bill falls into this big bucket that you hear me refer to frequently. It's about how we are not properly funding public education. And you've got a couple of proponents of public education here who are trying to help education be better, and in the process of doing that, and better in this circumstance is safer with regard to how children interact. But in the process of trying to make the environment better and safer, they are, in my estimation, putting a $20 to $30 million unfunded mandate on public schools. And we'll do that not once or twice a session, but 5 or 10 or 15 times a session. If you do 10, $20 million unfunded mandates on public education, at the end of the session, you're $200 million short of being able to deliver on the product you're trying to deliver. And we do that year after year after year, and we can't figure out why public education doesn't have enough money, and the people who work inside of public education are so desperate for more cash. It's because of the well-intended but unfunded mandates of bills like 296. And so that's my primary argument in opposition to the bill. And I'll, at the end of the day, be a no vote. I don't think we're going to get there on policy. Do have a few amendments that I would offer. Would have liked if we just had a little more time, and boy, we are all in the hurly-burly at this point. The drafters that work in this building are incredible lawyers, and they are incredible workmen and workwomen who actually deliver more than you could expect from anyone under any circumstance, and we put them in the most challenging circumstances, and they deliver for us time and time and time again. And we put them in unfair circumstances. And that's, I would acknowledge exactly what I've done here today as we're trying to catch up with this bill and get some amendments prepared. I put the drafters in an unfair spot. But here's what we have been able to get developed. I've got to get my pitch a little better on this. Oh, sorry, here.
There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L15?
Amendment L015 by Senator Lundin, amend printed bill page 3.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move amendment L015.
Any discussion on the amendment?
As close as I can get the rationalization between what we've sent down to drafting and what's come back up, and there may be some disconnects in that. I acknowledge that right up front. The intent of this amendment is schools refer to their staff legally as employees. So this changes that language. Additionally, applying this bill to contractors who range from electricians to landscaping, et cetera, applying this bill to those contractors is inappropriate. So this amendment is to, on page 3, strike line 26, strike school staff and replace with employee. On page 3, line 7, strike or contractor who works in the public, and on page 4, line 1, strike school. So the intention of this is really technical in nature, and I would urge the sponsor's support if, in fact, it's doing what we believe it is supposed to be doing. L015.
Senator Marchman. Senator L5 has been requested and granted. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the good senator from Lundinville. This is a friendly amendment, and we are pleased to accept it. In terms of unfunded mandate, there is already work going on in the schools for Title IX, so there's already space for that, and I have committed also to run as one of my first 5 bills next year to get some funding for this, because it is so important. The other thing is we have added time to this in order to fund it properly. So thanks for the amendment. It's accepted.
The motion is the adoption of L015. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L15 is adopted. Senatorial 5 has been requested and granted. The Senate is back in order. Any further discussion on Senate Bill 296? Senator Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the sponsor's indulgence. I do believe that we are, through the process here, making the bill better. There you go.
There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L23?
Amendment L023 by Senator Lundin, amend printed bill page 9, line 18.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L23.
Any discussion on L23?
This is about policy distribution. The language clarifies that the school can distribute the policy through the student handbook or other means. And we'll give the sponsors here a moment to rationalize it. No.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just pondering, as we contemplate Amendment 20 here, what it takes for an amendment to get on a bill and a bill to become a law. I urge the sponsor's support of Amendment L020. 23, excuse me. And
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, as we go through amendments, I want to say thank you to all the stakeholders, many of whom are in the lobby, and say that we're going to continue to work on all of this language. At this time, we're asking for a no vote on L023 because we think that it is important that this policy covers both harassment and discrimination, and feel like it severs that.
Seeing no further discussion on L23, the motion is the adoption of L23. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. No. The noes have it and L23 is lost. There's an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L18?
Amendment L018 by Senator Lundin, amend
Senator
printed bill.
Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L018.
To the amendment.
So this is some clarifying language about what constitutes retaliation. Retaliation is something we don't want to see among human beings interacting with each other. And the bill has a specific set. This is language that is coming back from those who work in the school environment and they believe this would clarify and help provide a better outcome. Amendment L018.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After reviewing L018, it's a friendly amendment. We'd urge an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of L018. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L018 is adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L19? Senator Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L019.
To the amendment.
So we're continuing, 18, 19, 20 are all in the same sequence. I'm grateful the sponsors picked up 18. This amendment clarifies some record retention requirements. This amendment amends the language on record retention and adds clarifying language to provide guidance to the schools. This is the sort of thing where everybody thinks that it just magically happens, these great policy ideas we have, but typically there's a lot of people, much like the drafters, who have been working so hard, frenetically, I would say, to get us these amendments so we could get them into the bill. There are people in school districts who have to do the same sort of stuff, and this gives them guidance, explains to them, how you may best do that. The amendment itself is a little wonky for people that read amendments. It makes sense, but to people who don't do this for a living, it makes no sense. The amendment is simply on page 5, line 26, strike a case file of A. On page 5, line 27, strike case. On page 6, line 1, strike file and replace with records. It has an array of words like that when you put them all back together in the bill and you rationalize it, it is actually meaningful policy that would be beneficial to the people who work to serve our children, students in the local school districts. I urge your support, and I believe the sponsors may as well, of L019.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On Amendment 19, by adding in on line 7 of the amendment, any accommodations or supportive measures. And so we're adding in accommodations or to this amendment. We will view that as a friendly amendment.
Senator Lundin.
So to be clear, I move a conceptual amendment to L019 that adds after any and before supportive the words accommodations or.
So the motion is the adoption of L19. Senator Lundin.
The motion is a conceptual amendment or a substitute motion that would allow for the addition of the words accommodations or in between the words any and supportive on line 7 of Amendment L019. And if we move that, then we would move and adopt the amendment. Not sure about process here.
The motion, Senator Lundin.
I was just going to say, I would renew my motion, which is conceptual in nature, to insert the words accommodations or between any and supportive on line 7 of Amendment L019.
The motion is a conceptual amendment to L19. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that conceptual amendment is adopted. Senator Lundin.
I renew my call for the passage of Amendment L019.
The motion is the adoption of L19. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L19 is adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L20?
Amendment L020 by Senator Lundin, amend the Senate Education Committee.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I move amendment L020.
Any discussion on the amendment?
Yes, this removes some confusing language on reporting. It's confusing and unnecessary in light of the requirement of sub 2 that we just passed in amendment L19.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a no vote on L020. This does much more than clarifying reporting and removes a significant portion of the bill that is required to make sure that these policies are implemented, and I ask for a no vote.
Senator Lundin.
Appreciate that very much. Not trying to sneak anything through. Glad we're working these out as we walk through them.
The motion is the adoption of L20. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no? No. The noes have it, and L20 is lost.
4.
There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L17?
Amendment L017 by Senator
Lundin.
Mr. Chair, I move amendment 17.
To the amendment.
This is changes around the investigation language. There may be some sensitivity to here, but I think that it's a good amendment. These are technical language changes to this investigation requirements to provide clarity to the school districts. Additionally, some school districts, particularly rural districts, may be contracting out investigations due to conflicts or capacity concerns. We need to have this language in the bill that would allow for that to happen. Urge your support and consider careful consideration of 17.
It's changing the standard. It's taking out the evidentiary standard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question about this. We talk about contracting out of this investigation. Can you kind of explain that to me? We already have a new $3 billion business that is keeping our schools safe. Is this a new business that's going to be then investigating inside of our schools to see what kind of harassment and bullying is going on?
Senator Lundin. Thank you very much. I appreciate the question. It's a great question. I think the more likely result would be a former assistant principal of the district who's now retired, who has time on his hands, expertise in his skull or her skull, and desires to be supportive to the district, might enter into a contract with the district to help manage some issues such as an investigation that's a little bit beyond the capacity of perhaps a smaller rural district. I think that's the intention. There might be other constructions that could be perceived, but I believe that is the intention behind this.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can also respond to the investigation piece. We do have Title IX lawyers that are experts in this area, and they work oftentimes with both workplace harassment. For example, 4 years ago when we went through our drama here, we had some Title IX lawyers that the legislature hired. Sometimes higher ed contracts out to Title IX lawyers are experts. And so I think this is a friendly amendment if the school district either doesn't have the capacity or feels that they have a case where they don't have the expertise necessary in order to hire the people that do have the expertise.
Senator Zenzinger.
And I would agree with the sponsor. I think this amendment tightens up the language a little bit around the situation on the ground with regard to school districts. It's not always a staff person, sometimes it's a district level person. And so that's a technical term that might be better described in the way that it is being put forth in the amendment. So I also would agree that this is a friendly amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of L17. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L17 is adopted. Seeing no further discussion, oh, there is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L25?
Amendment L025 by Senator
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L025.
To the amendment.
This one is super wonky and beyond my pay grade. This would insert the word program and establish the nature of the program as opposed to using the phrase or the word policy. Bill sponsors and opponents or amending counterparties would understand this more clearly than I do. I apologize. I can't describe it more clearly than that to the sponsors.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We encourage a no vote on this. We believe very strongly that in order to have the protections that our students need across the state, this needs to be a policy and not a program. It needs to be a policy and not a program. And we need to, I encourage a no vote on this.
The motion is the adoption of L25. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The noes have it, and L25 is lost. There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L24?
Amendment L024 by Senator Lundin, amend printed bill page 10, line 7, strike information and substitute information aggregated and
Senator
without
Lundin.
personally identifying.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L024. This is reporting information. It is aggregate information and not reporting schools' findings. So it protects privacy and yet gathers information that's beneficial to understanding what is happening in our schools.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We view Amendment 24 as a friendly cleanup amendment to make sure that reporting also maintains confidentiality and is done in a way that the districts can handle, and we encourage a yes vote on this amendment.
The motion is the adoption of L24. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L24 is adopted.
One to go after this.
There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L16?
Amendment L016.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L016.
To the amendment.
So this amendment is about clarity across the state of Colorado. This is about making sure that the standards and the behaviors and what we're trying to achieve are uniform. It would give the responsibility to the districts to make sure that notices are posted describing the fact that the Civil Rights Division, in consultation with the Department of Education, has developed this notice, and the notice is about this process that we are entering into as supported by Senate Bill 296.
Senatorial 5, please.
Senatorial 5 has been requested and granted. Senator Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I withdraw Amendment L016.
Amendment L016 is withdrawn.
Withdrew that one. 16, okay.
There is an amendment at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L14?
Amendment L014 by Senator Lundin, amend printed bill
Senator
page
Lundin.
2.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L014.
To the amendment.
Thank you. This provides some additional language into the legislative declaration. As you all know, it's not law, but it's context. The LegDec would be amended to say the General Assembly finds and declares that public schools can reasonably be expected to respond when children engage in acts of misconduct, while acknowledging that not all acts of children can be prevented and not all misconduct constitutes harassment or discrimination. It's the intent of the General Assembly that this Senate Bill 296 implements the recommendations of Title IX regulation studies required by Senate Bill 22207 enacted in 2022 regarding best practices for prevention, notification, training, and responding to sexual harassment in public schools. It does not create a private cause of action against a local education agency or employee, and then renumber the following sections to line things up. So in addition to LegDec Amendment 014, I urge your support.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I withdraw Amendment L014 and will be back.
Amendment L014 is withdrawn. Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are working on one last amendment that we will agree to. This bill is essential to protect our children. Working on this bill, students from across the state have come to us talking about how they are scared to go to school. They don't believe cases of harassment or rape have been addressed. They don't know who to call. They don't know what the process would be if they came forward, if they would be treated fairly, if they'd be treated confidentially, if they'd be cross-examined. When we talk about reporting, when we talk about making our schools safe, it is essential that there is a clear process. We can legislate policies, and that's what this is. We can't legislate culture. But this policy is a strong foundation to create a culture of respect, to create a culture of safety, to create a culture where our children aren't scared to go to school and can come forward and feel comfortable coming forward when something does happen. And I encourage a yes vote on this bill.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say thank you to our colleagues who have helped us today. And I'm excited for this policy, and I urge an aye vote on Senate Bill 296.
There is an amendment
Daniel Ma.
at the desk. Ms. Cole, will you please read L27?
Amendment L027 by Senator Lundin, amend printed bill
Senator
page 2.
Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Drum roll, please. I move amendment L027, the final amendment that I have to offer, although I think this bill is going to get well litigated in the House, and urge your support. This is a cut-down version of the amendment we were running earlier. Simply, all this will do is put into the legislative declaration that it is the intention of the General Assembly that this Senate Bill 23-296 does not create a private cause of action against a local education agency or its employee. I'm sensitive to this because, as you heard me say in my opening comments, this is an unfunded mandate on the districts to apply this policy, to enforce this policy, to investigate, to do all the things, much of which they're already doing in other ways. This will force them to do it in a different way. But the liability risk that could come as well is something that would increase insurance rates potentially, which is expensive for districts, and there could actually be liability claims that come against the districts that would be expensive to account for as well. So this is something we really want to make clear, that this does not engender private rights of action. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I agree with the good senator from Monument. I think the sponsors have already worked really hard on making sure that they have addressed the liability concerns. This is just language that is going into the legislative declaration, but it also helps with that. So I think that this is good language that would help strengthen the work that has already been done around those liability questions. And I would ask for an aye vote, and hopefully the sponsors will too.
Senator Marchman.
Should I move it? Did you move it? Okay, do you want to move?
You want to move it?
I'll move it. So I move L027.
Thank you.
And I'd urge an aye vote. That is exactly right. Our intention is not to create unfunded mandates for our schools. So I appreciate that and urge an aye vote.
The motion is the adoption of L27. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. L27 is adopted. Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much. I want to pause for just a second to thank the sponsors. At the end of the day, we won't get there together on policy. I think that there are elements inside the policy that I won't be able to disagree with, but I appreciate so much the diligence that you've put into this bill, even before today. And now today, this was an unusual circumstance to have this many amendments on second, and I'm grateful that the sponsors were willing to engage in the dialogue, take the amendments, many of them, not all of them, and move the bill forward. I believe it's better policy. Even though it's not policy, I'll be able to vote yes for it. Thank you very much.
The motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 296. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and 296 is adopted. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee proceed out of order for consideration of House Bill 1210.
The motion is to proceed out of order for consideration of House Bill 1210. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will proceed out of order for consideration of 1210. Ms. Cole, will you please read the title to House Bill 1210?
House Bill 1210, Representative Dixon, Senator Hansen, concerning carbon management and in connection therewith ensuring that carbon management projects are eligible for grants under the Industrial and Manufacturing Operators Clean Air Grant Program and providing for the creation of a carbon management roadmap.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1210 and the Appropriations Committee report.
To the committee report.
Thank you, members. I urge acceptance of the committee report. We actually reduced the fiscal note slightly and made that adjustment in Senate Appropriations.
The motion is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, bill focused on creating a roadmap for how we handle different types of carbon management in Colorado. I think there's a huge amount of opportunity in this area, and this bill will help kick off a comprehensive study of that opportunity, and I urge an aye vote.
The motion is the adoption of House Bill 1210. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and 1210 is adopted. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the balance of the special orders second reading calendar lay over until tomorrow, Wednesday, May 3rd.
The motion is for the balance of the special order second reading calendar to lay over until tomorrow, May 3rd. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the remainder of the calendar will be laid over. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Hendrickson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Ms. Cole, will you please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 299 is amended. Senate Bill 296 is amended. Passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1158 is amended. House Bill 1088 is amended. House Bill 1133, House Bill 1138 is amended. House Bill 1252, House Bill 1192 is amended. House Bill 1214 as amended. House Bill 1286, House Bill 1210 as amended, passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bills 1249, 1120, 1190, Senate Bill 303, and House Bill 1270 laid over until May 3rd, 2023, and retaining their place on the calendar.
Senator Hendrickson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 299 is amended. Senate Bill 296 is amended, passed on second reading order, engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1158 is amended. 1088 is amended. 1133, 1138 as amended. 1252, 1192 is amended. 1214 is amended. 1286, 1210 is amended, passed in second reading order, revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bills 1249, 1120, 1190, Senate Bill 303, House Bill 1270 laid over until May 3rd and retaining their place on the calendar. Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. I got it. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 13?
Senate Bill 13, Senators Janal and Cutter, Representatives Lynch and Story, concerning resources for fire investigations to enhance public safety and in connection therewith prioritizing funding for wildland fire investigations and making an appropriation.
Senator Janal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with amendments to Senate Bill 13.
Is there any explanation, Senator Janal?
Thank you, Mr. President. The changes were made in appropriations, and it was changed to an annual appropriation instead of a continuous appropriation. This will help to clarify where the money is going out each year. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 13. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Janal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 13.
The motion is for the repassage of Senate Bill 13. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Baisley, Rich, Gardner, Minority Leader Lundeen, Smallwood, Kirkmeyer, Liston, Pelton B, Pelton R, Simpson. With a vote of 24 ayes, 11 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 13 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 16 lay over to the end of the calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 16 will lay over to the bottom of the calendar. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 29?
Senate Bill 29, Senator Moreno, Representative Lindsay, concerning addressing disproportionate discipline in public schools and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 29.
Is there any explanation?
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, the House added just a bit more definition of what we mean by discipline to say including but not limited to positive behavioral intervention and supports, bullying intervention and prevention, and behavior intervention plans. I encourage your concurrence.
The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 29. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 29 as amended.
The motion is the repassage of Senate Bill 29. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Will, Baisley, Rich, Gardner, Lundeen, Smallwood, Kirkmeyer, Liston, Pelton B, Pelton R, Simpson. With a vote of 23 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 29 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 35?
Senate Bill 35, Senators Bridges and Moreno, Representatives Harrod and Joseph, concerning the operation of the Middle Income Housing Authority in connection therewith, adding members to the Board of Directors, expanding the power of the authority to enter into public-private partnerships, and making an appropriation.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 35.
Is there an explanation?
There is. There was a small amendment that was added at the request of assessors to make sure that when properties are purchased, they are noticed so that they can apply the proper assessment.
The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 35. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 35.
The motion is for the repassage of Senate Bill 35. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Baisley, Rich, Gardner, Kirkmeyer, Minority Leader Lundin, Smallwood, Liston, Will, Pelton B, Pelton R. With a vote of 24 ayes, 11 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 35 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 53?
Senate Bill 53, Senators Kirkmeyer and Rodriguez, Representatives Woodrow and Evans, concerning restrictions on non-disclosure agreements that affect government employees.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with the House amendments to Senate Bill 53.
Is there an explanation?
Yes, there is. There are a couple of small technical amendments just to clean up some of the contract negotiation language, and it passed out of the House unanimously. Woohoo!
It's unbelievable. The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 53. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 53.
The motion is for the repassage of Senate Bill 53. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 53 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senators Moreno, Minority Leader Lundin, Smallwood. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 67?
Senate Bill 67, Senator Coleman, Representatives Bacon and Holtorf, concerning a recidivism reduction program for persons sentenced to the Department of Corrections, facilitated by program participants in partnership with Department of Corrections staff and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 67.
Please explain an explanation.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House made a requirement that the Department of Corrections include in 2024 report about the program development information on how it spent the money to develop the program and recommendations of statutory changes necessary to implement the program. And I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 67. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. What a phenomenal bill this is. And I should have added on the senator from Cheyenne Wells, but thank you for your support. Excuse me, Sterling, you're not Pelton R. I made the same mistake somebody else did. That said, I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 67.
The motion is for the repassage of Senate Bill 67. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Baisley, Rich, Gardner, Lundin, Kirkmeyer, Liston, Pelton R., Simpson. With a vote of 26 ayes, 9 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 67 is repassed. Co-sponsors, Senators Pelton B., Priola. Will the clerk please read Majority Leader Moreno?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 105 lay over to the end of the calendar.
Motion is to lay over Senate Bill 105 to the end of the calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no? The ayes have it. Senate Bill 105 will lay over until the bottom of the calendar. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 111?
Senate Bill 111, Senator Rodriguez, Representative Woodrow, concerning public employees' workplace protection from employer retaliation and in connection with making an appropriation.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with the House amendments to Senate Bill 111.
Is there a discussion or an explanation?
Yeah. In the House, there was an amendment we did in the Senate that accidentally carved out some sections that we did not want to carve out, which was K-12. Oh, well, I'll get to that. So we never intended to carve them out, and we never had that discussion here, so we made sure we put that in, and that was from an amendment offered by the AG. We also did an amendment to clarify to make there was no overlap with the municipalities that had collective bargaining. And also an amendment was added on the floor that gave the Department of Labor to consider the the counties that were under 7,500.
The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 111. Are there any no votes?
Still going to pass.
Senators Baisley, Van Winkle, Will, Rich, Gardner, Lundin, Smallwood, Kirkmeyer, Liston, Pelton B, Pelton R, Simpson. With a vote of 23 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 111.
Motion is the repassage of Senate Bill 111. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Will, Baisley, Rich, Gardner, Lundin, Smallwood, Kirkmeyer, Liston,
Trying to help you.
Pelton B, Pelton R, Simpson. With a vote of 23 ayes, 12 noes, zero absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 111 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 153?
Senate Bill 153, Senators Rodriguez and Rich, Representatives Duran and Pugliese, concerning the continuation of the regulation of notaries by the Secretary of State and the Department of State, and in connection therewith implementing the recommendations in the 2022 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies and making an appropriation.
Senator Rich.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with the House amendments to Senate Bill 153.
Please share why you would like to concur. Senator Rich.
Well, once again,
Or Senator Rodriguez.
Once again, colleagues, the lower chamber explains why they're the lower chamber. This bill came out of here pretty strong, which gave rulemaking authority to the Secretary of State's office to do rulemaking to change the fees and adjust them as needed for the fees for notary. But in the House, they decided to put those fees in statute at $15 and I believe $15 for notary increased from $5 and $25 for remote. My reminder to the Joint Budget Committee that you should be able to peel back that supplemental money that they did for that rulemaking during JBC. So a little bit of money back into the coffers, and that's what happened.
Is there no more discussion? The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 153. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, motion is adopted. Senator Rich.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 153.
The motion is repassage of Senate Bill 153. Are there any no votes? Senators, Mr. Minority Leader, Baisley, Van Winkle, Gardner. With a vote of 31 ayes, 4 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 153 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Will the clerk please read the title? Senate Bill 172.
Senate Bill 172, Senator Winter F. and Gonzalez, Representative Wiseman and Bacon, concerning protections for Colorado workers against discriminatory employment practices and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a motion I've been waiting to make for 4 years, and I move that we concur with the House amendments to 172.
Is there any discussion? Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. It was a small amendment that simply changed how we drafted around CDOT, because this applies to all state employees, including all employees across Colorado.
The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 172. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we move for the repassage of Senate Bill 172.
The motion is a repassage of Senate Bill 172. Are there any no votes? Senators Rich, Baisley, Van Winkle, Simpson, Mr. Minority Leader, Gardner, Pelton R., Pelton B., Will, Liston, Kirkmeyer, Smallwood. With a vote of 23 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 172 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Majority Leader. Oh, 1 second. Please add Senator Danielson as a co-sponsor to Senate Bill 172. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 195 lay over to the end of the calendar.
The motion is for Senate Bill 195 lay over to the end of the calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 195 will lay over to the end of the calendar. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 249?
Senate Bill 249, Senators Bridges and Van Winkle, Representatives McLaughlin and Evans, concerning false reporting of an emergency.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 249.
Any discussion? Senator Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate just said that the police and law enforcement need to respond even if there's a suspicion of a swatting incident, and they do anyway, so I ask for a yes vote.
The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 249. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 249.
The motion is the repassage of Senate Bill 249.
Good work.
Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 249 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senator Sullivan. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 261?
Senate Bill 261, Senators Danielson and Exum, Representatives Duran and Wilford, concerning the creation of the Direct Care Workforce Stabilization Board to develop recommendations regarding direct care workers and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 261.
Is there any discussion?
We just made some clarifications, added some specifics around the information, and it made the bill a little bit better. Hate to admit it. Urge an aye vote.
The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 261. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate repass Senate Bill 261.
The motion is repassage of Senate Bill 261. Are there any no votes? Senators Rich, Baisley, Van Winkle, Simpson, Pelton R., Pelton B., Will, Gardner, Mr. Minority Leader, Smallwood, Kirkmeyer, Liston. With a vote of 23 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 261 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 266?
Senate Bill 266, Senators Priola and Hawkins Lewis, Representatives Brown and Kipp, concerning a requirement that the Commissioner of Agriculture designate neonicotinoid pesticides as limited use pesticides.
Senator Hawkins Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill was meant to be.
We move that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 266.
The Senate is buzzing. The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 266. Are there any no votes? Senator Pelton B. With a vote of Senator Van Winkle also, Senator Baisley, as well as Senator Gardner, and that's it. With a vote of 31 ayes, 4 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 266, motion is adopted. Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the B pass of Senate Bill 266.
The motion is the B passage of Senate Bill 266. Are there any no votes? Double hands up. Senator Pelton B twice.
You're going to get
Senator,
stung.
Mr. Minority
You're
Leader.
going to get stung.
Senators Gardner, Rich, Baisley, Van Winkle, Pelton R. Pelton B, I think I got you twice, 3 times. Senator Liston, Kirkmeyer. With a vote of 26 ayes, 9 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 266 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 276?
Senate Bill 276, Senator Fenberg, Representative Sirota, concerning modifications to the laws regarding elections and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 276.
Any discussion? Senator Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House added a couple of items, nothing that changed any significant policy. Added that voter drop boxes can be placed at places of worship. Removed the word state from state institution of higher education where it was erroneously left in, and it extends some of the implementation timeline for some of the voter service centers that are on college campuses. But everything else that we discussed in the Senate was retained in the bill.
Souls to the polls. The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 276. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 276.
The motion is the repassage of Senate Bill 276. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader. Senators Gardner, Van Winkle, Baisley, Liston, Smallwood. Please remove Senator Baisley. Please make Senator Baisley an aye vote, not a no vote. With a vote of 30 ayes, 5 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 276 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 290?
Senate Bill 290, Senator Fenberg, Representative Amabile, concerning natural medicine and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 290.
Any discussion? Senator Fenberg.
The House added a couple of clarifying amendments. One was around record sealing. One was a technical amendment to clarify some aspects that CML was requesting. And there was also an amendment that directed agencies to collect specific data and publish a report. A definition for federally recognized tribes, and a couple of other largely technical amendments, but no major policy changes happened in the House.
The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 290. Are there any no votes? Senator Van Winkle. Mr. Minority Leader.
You don't like the amendment?
Senator Gardner. With a vote of 32 ayes, 3 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 290.
The motion is repassage of Senate Bill 290. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Gardner, Rich, Baisley, Will, Simpson, Pelton R., Pelton B., Liston, Kirkmeyer, Smallwood.
You guys are a buzzkill.
With a vote of 24 ayes, 11 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 290 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Will the clerk please read the title of the Senate bill, Mr. Minority Leader? Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I wish to be recorded as a co-sponsor for Senate Bill 111.
Will the clerk please add Senator Danielson as a co-sponsor to Senate Bill 111? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having voted on the prevailing side, I move for the reconsideration of Senate Bill 153.
The motion is for the consideration of Senate Bill 153. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The motion is adopted and reconsideration is granted. Majority. Senator Rodriguez. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 153?
Senate Bill 153 by Senators Rodriguez and Rich and Representatives Duran and Pugliese concerning the continuation of the regulation of notaries by the Secretary of State and the Department of State and in connection therewith implementing the recommendations in the 2022 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies and making an appropriation.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 153.
The motion is repassage of Senate Bill 153. Are there any no votes?
You're on no votes, right?
Yes. Again, members, the motion is the repassage of Senate Bill 153. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Baisley. With a vote of 33 ayes, 2 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 153 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the balance of the consideration of House amendments to Senate bills calendar lay over until tomorrow, Wednesday, May 3rd.
The motion is that the balance of the consideration of House amendments to Senate bills calendar lay over until tomorrow, Wednesday, May 3rd. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the balance of the consideration of House amendments to Senate bills calendar will lay over until tomorrow, Wednesday, May 3rd. Conference committees to report.
First report of the First Conference Committee on Senate Bill 155 to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Your First Conference Committee appointed on Senate Bill 155 concerning the continuation of the regulation of nursing home administrators and in connection therewith implementing the recommendations in the 2022 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies has met and reports that it has agreed upon the following: that the Senate accede to the House amendments made to the bill as the amendments appear in the re-revised bill with the following changes. Respectfully submitted Senate Committee, Senators Zenzinger, Chair, Mullica, and Smallwood. House Committee, Representatives Wolford, Chair, Young, and Bradfield.
Delivery to the governor.
May 2nd, 2023, to the governor for signature on Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023, at 11 a.m. Senate Bill 12, 1744, 151, 157, 187, and 206.
Introduction of bills. First reading.
House Bill 1198, Representatives Titone and Lucan, Senator Rich, concerning a statewide teacher externship program to provide kindergarten through 12th grade teachers work-based learning opportunities in specified disciplines and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Finance.
House Bill 1253, Representatives Sharbini and Lindsay, Senator Hinrichsen, concerning a task force to study corporate ownership of housing in Colorado and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Local government and housing. Announcements. Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, Finance Committee will be meeting, let's call it 7 o'clock.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two announcements. The first one, the Senate Business, Labor, and Technology Committee will also meet at 7 o'clock in the old Supreme Court. We will be taking up the bills in this order: House Bill 1076, House Bill 1297, House Bill 1288, House Bill 1174, and House Bill 1078.
And Senator, Mr. Assistant Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Next announcement, colleagues, just want to let you know that the conference committee for Senate Bill 60 will be tomorrow at 8:45 a.m. in room 352. Be there, be square.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Appropriations will meet tomorrow morning at 8:45 a.m. and we'll be hearing House Bill 1060, 1086, 1146, 1199, 1215, 1242, 1293, 1295, and 1307. Canary packets will be on your desk within the next half hour, and they will be in an email. Thank you. See you tomorrow, 8:45.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Transportation and energy folks, we are going to cancel tomorrow's meeting and reschedule the two bills we have for some time to be determined on Thursday. So no transportation and energy tomorrow. We will be rescheduling the two bills we have for some determined time in the future on Thursday.
Senator Jaquez Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Local Government and Housing will be meeting at 7 p.m. We'll be taking up House Bill 1254, House Bill 1065, House Bill 1255, House Bill 1304, and House Bill 1287 at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Senator Jaquez Lewis. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Judiciary Committee will meet tomorrow, and we will hear some bills. They will appear on your printed calendar, and we look forward to seeing them on your printed calendar.
Senator Jaquez Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Local Government and Housing will have a special meeting tomorrow at 1:30, and that will be in room 357. Local Government and Housing tomorrow, 1:30, room 357.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seeing no further announcements, I move that the Senate adjourn until tomorrow, Wednesday, May 3rd at 9 a.m.
You heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will adjourn until 9 a.m. Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. We could be done today.